All right, you can go.
Okay, everybody, welcome. 2025 budget, divisional budget hearings. So there's decision packages from May 1st through May 10th. We're going to hear all 40 plus departments come through and be robust conversations. Really looking forward to it. So why don't we get it started? All these will be live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. Hopefully the public will be able to see these, see the needs, see the decisions being made, and be able to understand a little bit more about what we do here at Sedgwick County government. So Manager Stoltz, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman. I know you're being facetious when you say it's going to be a lot of fun, because it's probably not going to be. We have a lot to cover. Let me kind of just take 5 minutes before Lorianne gets up and gives us more of a in-depth view of finances and just talk about some rudimentary things going forward. The staff has been working on budget since late last year. I think the staff understands the gravity of this budget, the stresses and pressures. They were challenged to look for, if they were going to come in and ask for additional monies, they were going to be challenged to look for reductions or revenue packages or some type of reform and offset, collaboration, collapse, some type of strategy moving forward, or prove and show a dire public safety need. So that's the challenge we gave all department heads as they started to craft their budgets. And just in an overview, just some rough numbers, 1 mil we expect in 2025 will be about 6.8 million in the county government. For every 1% of compensation that we give to all funds, 1% of compensation in 2025 will cost us 1.9 million per 1%. In the 2024 adopted budget, our total cost for compensation was roughly $260,000. And a lot of that you've put in the last 3 years, to the tune of 40 or 50 million of that have come just in the last few years that this commission has authorized and went forward with. And you'll see throughout these presentations how that has helped the organization. And that includes the 260 million includes the additional monies you threw to the sheriff to increase his salaries, and also a small bump for 911 back in March. The bad news of today is, as part of the bad news, we know going forward we have at least a structural $4.9 million imbalance. So that means we have more expenditure than revenue, to the tune of about 5 million, that we're going to have to address through this process and before we push forward with a recommended budget. So I'll just describe to you kind of how you might also look at page 13 of your budget book's interesting. In 2024, adopted budget was 546 million. Our revised budget shows 636 million, almost 637, because of the psych hospital and ARPA funds. Our base budget heading into 25, with a lot of things left out, including compensation and health insurance, TRB, decision packages, is roughly about 544 million, just heading in to the landscape here. So the budget hearings will start today. Department heads or division heads will get up and go through their budget. There are all slides. We work a lot on what we actually put on this screen, and we argue a lot about it, and we take some out, we put some in. But the three that are, I think, very interesting for commissioners' attention is the department heads will show you their comparative staffing today versus a year ago. That's very interesting. And we'll begin to show you the good you've done with compensation adjustments. They will show you, since we're focusing on core services, they will show you discretionary expenditures versus non-discretionary. And let me define what discretionary means. Let me define what non-discretionary is. Non-discretionary means it is statutorily or legally driven. If it is not that, it becomes discretionary. So each department, as you hear these over and over, you will see that segmentation, and you'll also see how they are funded. Tax dollars, revenue dollars, grant dollars. You'll be able to see where in each department how they are funded currently. So those are 3 slides of interest. They're going to come at you with a lot of decision packages and needs. We cut some, but there's still over 13 million that they'll come in and talk with us about. Some of them, many of them, are costs of doing business. Medicine in the sheriff's office, for example. I don't know how you cut that. You can't. Comes in as a decision package. but the staff categorizes that as a cost of doing business. Utility bills, trash services, those types of things where we see increases that show up as decision packages, yet we really don't have much of an organizational chance to say no on something like that. And then you'll see some very aggressive decision packages. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I don't see Rusty here yet. But 911 and EMS come in with some pretty aggressive decision packages this year. So be prepared for that. Our challenges going forward as we work our way through this budget are and Brent did a really nice job of summarizing this morning at the end of his presentation. It's the reality of what our public expects of us versus the reality of budget confines. And that is a challenge going into this year. The challenge is to take care of our people and to take care of our environment, our structures, our buildings, our workspace. Those are going to be priorities as we work through the budget. And then I've heard from commission a couple of times throughout the year that in some areas we want what are considered world-class or superior services. Think 911, think EMS. And when you talk that kind of language, it comes with a price tag of staffing and environment and equipment. So we will, as we go through this, we'll be paying extra attention to that. So again, focusing on people and environment. Our next steps after this week is to we have 2 public hearings, roundtable discussions in the community at night, one on May 20, one on June 4. Nicole has worked up a really nice evening for people that want to take part in that. It's interactive. We're going to be asking for prioritization. And in fact, we are going to do that with the commission after we get through the budget hearings here. So sometime between May 10 and May 20, we will run an exercise on you before we run it out to the public. And we'll do that literally publicly. And we want to push people into a decision or a framework where they have to help give us prioritization suggestions. So that's kind of the plan going forward. We have a slate full today and we're already late getting started. So I'll be quiet and I'm going to let Lorian have the podium.
Thank you, Tom. Hey, Lorian, welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the forecast today, but first, as always, I want to thank the budget team, Carly Sanchez, Lee McRae, Dustin Sigler, and Paul Leaker. So at the same time as they were doing all this work on updating the forecast, they also did a monthly, a quarterly, and 2 versions of those big binders that you have. So they have done a lot of really hard work, and I'm very grateful to be part of the team with them. Okay. So as a reminder, the forecast is a planning tool. It's what we think is really going to happen, while the budget is the maximum spending limit in a given fund for 1 year. For example, in 2023, the general fund had 18.1 million in unspent authority, and the CommCare grant fund, there was 16.5 million in unspent authority. So you can see we don't plan to ever spend that maximum limit. So in terms of what's actually included in our forecast, we do plan for all current services. We have the current adopted CIP with a $3 million placeholder in 2029. Just to note that this is not the tentative CIP that you'll see next week on May 8th. There's 15.4 million included for technology review board projects. And then starting last year, we've begun doing transfers from the general fund to balance the auto license fund. Last year, that amount was 374,000. But by the end of the forecast in 2029, it's projected to be up to 1.7 million. We do have a stable mill levy rate of 28.988 in all years, and that matches our final 2024 rate. As for what's not included, we don't have any additional funding for new programs or most of the decision packages you'll hear. The only thing we've built in so far are those cost of doing business requests, and there is a summary on page 4 of your binder. So you can see what has been put in since the manager hearings. We don't have any unbudgeted community and economic development requests or road projects, any unanticipated technology needs, or any pending capital improvement needs and priorities. So there hasn't been a lot of changes from the forecast that you saw in February. So I'm going to just focus mainly on what has changed. But of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. So in our key revenue assumptions, if you look at row 2, our assessed value increases, we have increased our 2025 estimate to 5% before it was 4.5%. And our outer years have gone up to 4.5% from 4%. We think it actually will probably come in higher than that, but we believe that that would be the amount we would be allowed to capture. And that adds 0.9 million in recurring revenue each year. If you look at row 10, our gaming revenues, we do expect a decrease in 2025. That's when our current contract term with Crosswind Casino ends. And then finally on row 12, our investment income, our estimates have gone up quite a bit since the forecast you saw in February. And that's based on our current experience and the fact that rates haven't started to drop yet. We still believe they're going to start to decrease in 25 and in 26, and then they're going to level out in those outer years. And as a reminder, of course, we treat that as one-time income. So you look at our expenditure assumptions. We have 5% pay pools in 2025 and 2026, and then 4% pay pools in the outer years. And you can see those on row 14. Those 5% pay pools add 6.4 million in recurring costs, and 4% pay pools add 5.1 million in recurring costs. So these numbers are actually up slightly from our last forecast, and that's because our personnel has increased. As Tom mentioned, that's a lot due to the sheriff office request that was implemented in January, but also because of those compensation changes over the last few years.
Lauren, can you repeat that? Sorry, 4% pay pool does what?
It adds 5.1 million in recurring costs each year.
And 5% pay pool?
6.4 million.
Thank you.
No problem. And then since 2022, we have added 52.9 million in compensation. So those changes have really helped a lot. That's why our personnel is going up. And like Tom said, you're going to see that when departments start presenting, because there are some really incredible increases in those staffing numbers.
Please repeat those numbers for us.
The compensation amount? Yes, 52.9 million has been added since 2022.
And Lauren, can I just interject real quick? So what Lauren's talking about right now is the forecast, right? So that's county property tax supported funds only. So when you get your actual budget and that starts to affect grants and things, that number is actually going to be higher. I think Tom mentioned it's around, we estimated around 2 million for all operating funds. So I just want to clarify, that's why there's a disparity if you're talking about all operating funds versus just those funds that are actually influenced by what you do with the property tax rate, which is what we focus on in our forecast conversations. Sorry, Lorian. Thank you.
You want to do questions at the end or as we go? Review lecture, right?
On this piece here, why don't we do it as we go? Because there's a lot, and we can go at the end of each of the budget. This piece here, we'll let her cover it and we'll do it.
That sounds good, Chairman. When the department heads start presenting, we're on a really tight timeline.
Yeah.
So we'd like you to hold questions till
That's right.
after, but for this, I agree with Chairman.
My mic was off, so we'll stop if we go here because there's a lot of data, but when we get to the departments, we'll do them all at the end of each presentation. I think that'd be helpful.
I'm sorry to go backwards. Can you please tell us about the gaming revenues again? What'd you say?
Yes, our gaming revenues, we have that 3-year contract term with Crosswinds Casino that ends this year. So we believe it's going to start going down next year, and then it'll be at our regular rate that we expect to see from then.
So that's 1.5 for 1 year.
Yes.
That could be renegotiated, right?
We don't know what that.
Okay. And that Kansas Star is still providing the same till at least 2032. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But it's not showing there though.
This includes that amount. We just have had extra revenue the last 3 years because of that Crosswind Casino contract. When that ends, we're going to go back to what we were seeing before with just the Kansas.
There shouldn't be zeros in 26 to 29 then.
That's just the growth rate. So
Oh,
it stays.
okay, it's a change. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Thank
so,
you.
so these numbers are looking at year to year. So in 2024, we have expecting a 4.9% increase. In 2025, a 4.7% decrease from that 24 amount. So they're just
Okay.
looking at those.
I understand it now. It's time for a bite of my cookie. Thank you.
Okay.
I got it.
So back to the expenditure assumptions on row 20, just to point out for admin charges, those are very large fluctuations, but that's because we had those consolidated funds, ComCare, EMS, and Noxious Weeds, and they paid back their final payment last year after they were consolidated. So now we're back to our normal levels. Software and hardware maintenance on row 21. Those fluctuations are based on TRB projects in those years, and you will have a TRB presentation next week to see all those details. For our forecasted results, if you look at rows 33 to 35, these are the funds we are strategically drawing down the fund balances. We're trying to reach a goal fund balance by the end of the forecast, so that's why those are negatives. you look at general fund on row 31, this looks a little better than what you saw in February, and that's because of that increase in investment income. But as the note under says, we do still have that structural imbalance of 4.9 million every single year that we need to solve. For our forecasted ending fund balances for the general fund, if you look at row 38, we are going to stay well above that 20% minimum balance requirement. And then for the other funds, you can see how we're drawing them down and what that goal fund balance is that we're trying to reach at the end.
And Lorian, can I jump in again?
Mhm.
Sorry. So commissioners, I do want to highlight row 40. That's your aging tax fund. And if you recall, we have a lot of conversation about what that mill levy rate is. And I have talked before about how we're trying to draw that number down to a specific balance. That's what this illustrates here, is how we attempt to do that. So your row 33 shows that we are intentionally trying to overspend every year by the amount of revenue we actually bring in to get down to that designated level of fund balance that we believe is prudent for the type of activity that occurs in that fund. So I just want to be crystal clear on the mechanics of that, because I know that'll come up in conversation as we move through the process.
That's okay. You can see our mill levy rates by fund. Again, 28.998 is the mill levy we have set for every year. But just a reminder that what you're hearing is not going to be the recommended budget. We don't have budget adjustments for pay or updated health insurance charges. Our fleet and admin charges will also be updated before the recommended budget. And as you'll see, there are no CIP projects included in department budgets. Our 2025 requested budget currently totals $544,826,312. There's $13.6 million in decision packages with 67 FTE requests that you'll hear over the next week. We have one revenue package from EMS for 1.2 million based on a user fee increase. And there's $88,165 in alternative reductions. There's one from the county manager's office that's based on eliminating live KPTS coverage. And then we have one from IT to eliminate the Galago analytics solution. I think Tom covered most of these, but we do have those roundtable discussions. I think that that date has changed. Sounds like it's May 20th now. June 17th is the last day that any changes that are going to go into the recommended budget can be made. July 10th is our recommended budget and our last up day. The first public hearing will be the evening hearing. That's July 31st. And that second hearing is the required revenue neutral rate hearing and also our second budget hearing on August 21st, which is also our budget adoption day. And currently there are two budget workshops scheduled. There's the compensation workshop on May 9th and the benefits workshop on May 21st. For anyone that's following the process, as mentioned, these are streaming on YouTube and Facebook, and they will also be posted. We do have an online public hearing. It will start July 10th after the recommended budget's presented. And then I'll be happy to answer any other questions, but I left a packet of handouts, so I just wanted to kind of tell you what is in those really quickly. So of course you have your typical long sheet, which is not quite as long. I tried to shrink it and make it a little bit larger. Then you have two handouts. One is for all funds and one is for the general fund. This shows each department, their budget, and what % of the overall budget it is for the funds or the general fund.
Okay.
Next one, Carly put together this really helpful handout. It's going to show you all your major funds and the 2023 actual revenues and their percentages, just to give you an idea of what revenues are received in those funds. And then finally, there is another copy of your decision package summary. This one has highlights in yellow and a note for anything that is currently being funded by ARPA. So when you see those packages, you'll know that those are ARPA related requests. I also added a column that tells you what fund the request is in. And on the back page, it's going to tell you a fund total and what FTEs are also requested in those funds. So if anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
These additional handouts are really helpful. Really, really helpful. So thank you for doing that. Any questions for Lauren? Well, you'll be around. You won't be far. So if we have questions, we'll holler at you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're gonna go right in. We talked about this actually. Was somebody gonna time this and keep us on time, or we're just gonna trust the chairman to
Why is everybody laughing?
Chairman, what would you like to do? Would you
Let's
like
time it.
us to time keep it for you?
Let's time keep it, see if we can stay on time.
Who's our timer?
Carly, will you time keep this pretty please?
Yeah, do you want me to tell you when time's up or?
How about a 2-minute warning or something to the
Okay.
front?
I'll leave my hand when you got 2 minutes left.
What are we allocating for?
She's got 25 minutes.
25
for the
minutes.
hearing.
And there is a schedule in your binders on page 8. Thank you, my helpers, page 8. There is a schedule for you too.
And we will be starting on page
8.
75 for HR. Just gonna hand it over to Sheena.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm excited to be kicking this off and talking about the Division of Human Resources. We were asked to talk about our current workforce strength, and we are very strong in HR. We are standing at 98%. We have 22 out of 22.5 positions filled right now. We're made up of 5 different areas. That is Human Resource Administration, our Work Environment Department, Comp and Class, which we will talk about a lot during this budget cycle, and employment, and then of course, benefits that we will have a workshop on and go into detail in the future. This is our slide from where we were at a year ago, and really we are just about the same. In fact, we've only changed less than 0.5% to the good. So we're sitting at 98% filled. We did add a 0.5 position. We maneuvered some positions around. And so again, we're sitting very good and from where we were a year ago. We talked about some of our mandatory and discretionary services that we provide. And of course, if we have employees, then we do have to follow some mandatory requirements. Many of those are listed here and a lot of them are in duplicate. But under compensation and classifications, we have regulations that are under the Fair Labor Standards Act, USERRA, Department of Labor, and other county policies, and employment, the Department of Labor, state and federal laws, as well as our Sedgwick County policies. In HR administration, we have HIPAA compliance, KDOL, and our Sedgwick County policies. In benefits, we must comply with CAPERS, COBRA, the ACA, which includes all of our medical, dental, vision, and supplemental insurances. Under our work environment, we must comply with FMLA, ADA, PWFA, EEOC, state and federal laws, along with our Sedgwick County policies. Discretionary services that we offer are our training and then our recruitment services. Moving forward, some of the 5-year challenges and opportunities that we have. We want to continue to work on our compensation strategies to align with market wages and remain competitive with an ever-changing workforce. So that's something that we keep our eye on all the time. And I know it'll be a repetitive subject that we keep talking about, but we are constantly working on our compensation strategy. In addition, the Division of Human Resources must maintain a strong online and in-person presence for recruitment efforts. Employment trends fluctuate, and we need to ensure that we have the resources to attract and retain current and future employees. And you will hear a little bit more about this in our decision packages. I say an online presence because so much of our recruitment efforts now go on online. That's where people are searching for jobs. And then finally, the Division of Human Resources is dedicated to supporting all county employees. Training will continue to be a challenge as we develop and deliver training material to support a positive culture in Sedgwick County. And we will actually be bringing you information from our employee engagement survey that shows how important training is to employees. For the Division of Human Resources, we are encompassed by the general fund, and we also have a health and dental and life insurance fund. That's our fund 611 that holds all of our benefits. So that is the bulk of our expenses. For our general fund, we're at $2,101,572. And for our wellness fund, we're a little over 39 million for a total of just over $41 million that we oversee. Again, this is just a breakdown of our funds. The majority of our cost outside of our health and wellness fund do come from personnel cost. Again, we have 22 employees in human resources assisting around 3,000 employees. Next, I'll start with what our decision packages are. Our first one, and as Lorian alluded to on the sheet, it is for a recruitment specialist. We currently have a person in this position right now who is paid for through ARPA. And I will tell you, I have an email that I just received earlier this week that I've shared with a few people from an employee who was placed in a position, thanking our recruiter, David Donovan, for doing a good job in helping that person get placed within the organization. And that employee now says that is the best job that they've ever had. So we're doing a great job with this recruitment specialist. So we will be asking to continue this on. Our request is for $79,668. That is salary plus benefits. Our second decision package is our learning library. So we use our HRIS system, which is Success Factors. And one of our modules on there is to have a learning platform. This library is something that we add in addition to this. This library, we currently have it right now, and it allows employees access to over 9,000 online classes. So they can go get training in anything from Excel to Word to customer service to diversity. So this is something that we find very important to our employees to have access to. It comes at a cost of $57,174 for that renewal. Our third decision package is for Indeed and Glassdoor. This is to continue our funding for our recruitment platforms on Indeed and Glassdoor. The contract provides a company page with an enhanced profile. And what we're able to do with this right now is look at all the analytics so we can find out when people are hitting our pages, what jobs they're looking at, how many glances we get, hits that we get on our site. It's a very valuable tool for our recruiter that he uses every day. Again, it's a way that we get to peek into those candidates and find out where the workforce, what they're looking for. We also get to upload videos and basically put on a profile that makes us an attractive employer of choice. So those are the three decision packages Human Resources have. I'm sorry, I should have said Indeed and Glassdoor is a $31,000 renewal. So our total for our decision packages is $167,842 with the addition of one FTE that is currently in place paid through ARPA. This is just our division summary, again, broken down by our departments of comp and class, work environment, employment services, HR administration, employee development, and then our health and dental fund. So overall, HR's budget request is $41,104,121. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Okay. Very good. Any questions?
For the position, are we gonna be able to use ARPA dollars in 26 and then have to do
So
that yet?
the idea is, yes, you could. We have two options floating around right now for your consideration. We just talked about them at agenda review last week. My hope would be that the commission could hear all of these as we go through the discussion over the next week. Lorian has that list that she's prepared that has the ARPA positions highlighted. And so once you've heard everything, hopefully that can help inform which direction you want to go with that ARPA spend plan, whether you want to fund these in 25 and 26 through ARPA, if you want to shift them to the general fund, or if you want to continue them at all. Okay. So that'll be that conversation, I think, hopefully after the 8th, if that's okay with the body of the commission.
Yeah. And my only other question is on two, is that gonna be an annual cost?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I believe there are built-in escalators in that as well. But that would be the annual cost for 2025. Yes.
Thank you.
And I might add, you had asked about the recruiter. Not only does that position work with outside candidate, he also works with our current employees right now if they're looking to transfer, so he can help them through that process. And then we have other tools available in our employment department to help employees. We have mock it till you rock it interviews, so people can come in and practice with us as well.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you.
So on the HR stuff, does your costs and all that include services for the fire district?
Can you say that one more time?
In other words, you have expenditures and staff that do all kinds of things for HR. The costs and everything that you're doing, is it providing services to the fire district as well?
Yes, sir.
That's buried in these costs. Now, they provide some funding back to you. Is there a revenue package that shows revenue coming back as a consequence of?
No, just because it's coming back in general fund, and I'll defer to Lindsay as well.
So when we get into finance, we can talk about this if you'd like, but those administrative charges that Lorian referenced on your long sheet, those are accumulated across the organization from every fund. So yes, the fire district pays those admin charges. So does every other fund. And the organization that is not required to be exempt, all of that revenue is deposited in the CFO area of the budget and the general fund in just one big lump sum. But obviously, as you know, we have a cost allocation plan that comes out each year. We just got a draft of it a couple weeks ago for this upcoming year. And that's updated based on actual activity, based on our audited financials from last year.
How sure are we that they are making HR whole for what they consume in terms of services from HR? They're providing enough money back to the county to cover the cost of what it costs your agency to provide services to the fire district. But how sure are we that we're actually, I mean, if there's error one way or the other, does the county benefit from this, or?
I don't know if I can answer your question on.
It's
how whole we
formulaic,
are.
right? I
It
mean,
is formulaic. And one of the things that we could do if you'd like, maybe as a workshop, is to do a little bit of a deeper dive or conversation about what exactly goes into an administrative charge. We just had that conversation with the Fire District Steering Council not too long ago, so it makes perfect sense to have the same conversation with the commission.
Lindsay, just to jump in, I received that briefing and you walked me through all that goes in, and it's a lot more complicated than I imagined. So, and a lot of it is it's formulaic and it's mandated by formula. So some of this is, I think it'd be helpful to.
I think I've had that data in the past. And again, this is getting to what we call the divorce between the fire district and the county. And they believe, and it's not just them. I think there's others that also believe, me included, that may be to their benefit to actually do this differently than what we're currently doing it. So it's just at some point, it may not be available in this data, but it's a question that's just outstanding still. We need to.
Well, and to speak to that issue, I just received a note from Deputy Chief Nelson a week or so ago. They're actually trying to work with an accounting firm at least, and I presume they'll do the same thing for HR, trying to get specific transaction level detail from finance about the level of support we provide so they can get a quote. So I know that they are digging into that at the behest of the steering council. But I don't know that that will be done in time for this commission's conversation on the 2025 budget.
Well, a big portion of this, for example, if you just do I don't know how many employees this is for, but basic math tells me that of your health and wellness fund, it's almost $14,000 per employee average cost. If that fire district's part of that, obviously that's a pretty big chunk of money, for the 150 employees in the fire district, whatever it's going to be. Second of all, on the health and wellness, is that just medical insurance, dental insurance, and vision, or is there anything else in that number?
So there is some personnel built in there as well. Give me just 1 second. We have life insurance, dental insurance, administrative expensive, our prescription benefit, vision. We also have, again, those personnel, the benefits management built in, and then we have a leave donation that also goes into our budget.
Okay, there's no money in here for gym memberships or anything like that?
So we receive funding back from our vendor UHC, and that is how we pay for our gym memberships. So that credit is part of our contract.
Okay.
It's wellness money that has to be specifically applied for wellness items.
I don't know who benefits from that. To me, it's kind of we don't talk about this very much. So I'm not sure which employees are benefiting from that. I don't know.
Whoever submits their gym membership has received a gym membership reimbursement. We've not denied anyone.
Okay, so they can go to any, I guess I have to tell me how that works later on. Okay, then I just have I guess my final question was, this learning library on the back page here, it says it's a LinkedIn.
Yes, it's through LinkedIn. Yes, that's the vendor we use.
Is that internal to the county or is that
Yes,
outward?
it's internal.
Internal.
So it's, yes.
How are we doing that? Is this a current expenditure or is this something new?
It's a current expenditure that we have right now. Yes.
Okay.
It's been paid for through contingency dollars.
Okay.
You might recall a few years ago, our training platform went end of life. So we didn't have a way that we could track training or put any type of training online. And so this not only our platform tracks the training, but the library gives the ability for employees to go and actually take classes on there. And then we can actually put content on there as well. So mandatory trainings, for example, fire extinguisher training that comes on, we assign that to every employee. And then they are able to watch that online, and then we're able to track that they've done that annual training.
How many of our employees that we hire are coming through Indeed or Glassdoor? What percentage or so?
I could find out for you, but we do track our analytics.
I guess we used to have it. I don't know where it is now, but it used to be a website that had government jobs. And it was basically not just Sedgwick County, it was state of Kansas and Derby and Wichita. They were all listed on the same government portal. I don't know whatever happened to that, but I don't think that cost this kind of money. I don't remember anyway.
On
think
for
you-
government jobs.
Yeah, I think you might be referencing the former HRE partners.
Okay.
That was local organizations, local public sector organizations would use it. That was an internally built, internally developed application that just kind
Is it still out there?
no.
Okay.
No.
I know we're not on it. It sounds like we're not on it. Okay.
And Anna's going to answer specifically about government jobs website, but that is why we moved over to this platform, because HRE could no longer be supported. So you want to talk about that? Sorry.
We did utilize governmentjobs.com through ARPA. We purchased Indeed and Glassdoor at the same time. We actually stopped using governmentjobs.com. We did not have the traction with it. It was not worth continuing to spend the ARPA funding on it.
All right. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions for Shana? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation will be from the county counselor. Will be on page 38 of your binders. And Justin Wagoner is here to present.
Counselor.
Afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, staff. And Alicia is passing out our presentation material, so I'll go ahead and get started in the interest of time. First off, this is my first budget as county counselor, so I'm looking forward to it and presenting. I know last year I did it as a deputy. But I also want to thank Alicia for all of her hard work, and also Paul Leaker as our budget analyst. I'll go through this. First, kind of breaking down our workforce strength. Right now, we've added a couple attorneys in the last 6 months, so these numbers have gotten more green in terms of filling positions. I think we have one vacant support staff position, and there may be some county court judge vacancies that I don't necessarily consider staffing positions in our office, but they're reflected in this. But we are, with regard to attorneys, fully staffed and one support staff position short right now. This is also another slide demonstrating where we're at on some of those metrics. This slide indicates the mandatory and discretionary services in the county counselor's office. As you can see, all the services we provide are mandatory, whether it's county court, which is where we enforce our county codes or county resolutions, general legal services, which is legal opinions and advice we give on a day-to-day basis throughout the county, our litigation, both in-house and outside counsel, and then tax collection. That's mandatory also under state law. So our various forms, whether it's real estate tax foreclosure, bankruptcy, or representing the county and the county appraiser on the Board of Tax Appeals matters. So on the 5-year horizon, challenges and opportunities, the challenge that I've identified is the retention of our attorneys, really our deputy and assistant county counselors. I'm going to talk about that more as part of our decision package. Listed 2 different opportunities on here. The first one really is through additional experience and training in the office. I think we have an opportunity to enhance our subject matter expertise. We can get cross-training to build more depth in the office. I'm going to talk about our turnover issues we've had over the last few years. And the challenge that's made is that, we don't have attorneys who are necessarily as familiar with all the areas of law we do, the breadth of what we cover. You're going to hear budget presentations from all 46 departments or whatever it is. Well, we represent all of them. We have to give legal advice to all of them. And so it does take time and a concerted effort for us to build that kind of depth within the office. And then another opportunity I think we have is to augment our training opportunities and availability for county staff. So that's something that I think we can increase in the coming years. I know that's something Kirk Sponsel, our deputy county counselor, and I are very interested in doing. And this includes our, as you can see, we're general fund funded. We don't really have other sources of funds. And our fund request is very similar to what it was last year, 0.52% change. All right, and this shows the breakdown of the costs. Really, the most substantial change is our commodities reduction of about 38%. That's based on, we've always tried to reduce our hard copy library subscriptions of various publications and things that we use as research tools. That's been happening. I've worked here 11 years. We've continually been gradually reducing that number. That's why that number has been reduced some. Otherwise, most of our numbers on this are reflecting more or less the same as the 2024 budget. Which just brings us to the decision package, which this has to do with increasing the grade level and salary for deputy and assistant county counselor positions. To be clear, I'm not asking about anything dealing with my salary as county counselor. This is the other 6 attorney positions in the office. So there's 1 deputy county counselor position, and there are 5 assistant county counselor positions. And really our goal here, as you've probably heard from several other department heads over the past few years, is to retain our staff, retain our skilled attorneys that we have now. We have a really strong team of attorneys. They work very hard. They're very knowledgeable. They're good to work with. We've had a significant amount of turnover in the last few years. We think we could reduce that turnover if we're more competitive with our peers in the market. We also think we would enhance our efficiencies as an office because, again, when things aren't cases of first impression for our attorneys, when they're more familiar with it, they're much more efficient at their jobs, just like many other functions. The dollar amount is yet to be determined. I'll talk about that a bit later. We're not asking for any FTE additions. And I put that this was equal priority because really the bulk of what our office does is legal advice provided by these 6 attorneys. I'm there, but they're doing the most of the work, and really our assistant county counselors in particular, they're 5/7 of our office in terms of the workload they do. So this really is part and parcel of what we do. So a little bit of a roadmap on the decision package. I'm going to go through our mission. I'm going to talk about our turnover that we've had in the last few years. Also salary disparity, really drill down to some of the numbers, compare actual salaries with our peers and cost of living, look at kind of the inefficiencies of the status quo and the concerns that we have. And then lastly, kind of the benefits of the decision package and what it would prove. So our mission is to provide high quality, nonpartisan legal services to the county commissioners, elected and appointed officials, divisions, and advisory boards. The decision package, if we talk about this, really the problem that I identified was the attorney turnover. And I already mentioned we've got 7 attorney positions. And over the last 5.5 years, we've had 9 attorneys who have left the office. So that's 128% cumulative turnover in a 5.5-year window. Now, that's especially high rate for local government attorney positions. Those usually don't experience near that level of turnover. In just the last 2 years, we've lost 3 assistant county counselors to other government attorney jobs. So that's concerning. It's a trend we hope does not continue. Really, our key features in performing our mission, which again is high quality legal services. So you need high quality attorneys. And so we need to retain our high quality attorneys. You need to hire them. First of all, you need to retain them. But you also have to train them. We've been obtaining and training them. We haven't had issues on that end. I think we've become quite skilled at training attorneys. But it's been hard to hold on to them. And so that's really the challenge I think we've faced is as there's been a growing salary disparity between what our attorneys are paid and other peer institutions, there's really an ongoing vulnerability that we face. And this slide does really drill down into some of the numbers. I try to take a comparison of a number of different points of analysis on this. I looked at other local in-house offices in the Wichita area. So I included the city of Wichita and Wichita State. They're the 2 largest other in-house attorney offices in Wichita. Also looked at the 2 other largest county counselors' office. So you have Johnson County and KCK Wyandotte County. And also I know KCK Wyandotte County has often been used as a comparable for Sedgwick County. And then lastly, I looked internally at the Sedgwick County District Attorney's Office. And in all of these, the analysis was looking at comparable positions to deputy and assistant county counselors. So all the pay that you see demonstrated on this slide is showing those positions. And in parentheses, it says the number of attorney positions for each of those. And I think one of the the points that I see on this, the Sedgwick County Counselor's Office is an outlier. We're on the low end by quite a bit. It's not particularly close. There's a $19,500 average difference between us and the district attorney's office, and they're the next closest to us for similar positions. And also, I think it's worth noting that, we perform very similar functions, for example, to the attorneys at the city of Wichita. So one example would be there's an attorney at the city. I'm not going to get into naming who everyone is, but good attorney, just like the attorney in our office is, they perform the similar functions, almost exactly the same. They have almost the exact same number of years of experience. They have almost the exact same number of years of experience in their office. The attorney at the city makes $31,000 a year more than our attorney. Another example, I show this chart, and I'm mindful of the fact that we have had a lot of turnovers, and our average attorney hasn't been in the office 10 or 20 years, and I understand that, but we do have a lot of experienced attorneys, and several who have been there a number of years. But our two highest paid assistant county counselors, both of whom have each over 25 years of legal experience, if you average their salary, it's $104,000, still far and away the lowest number on there. So there's a concern there. I also mentioned KCKY and Dot County as a regular comparable to Sedgwick County, and their attorney average pay for their 9 positions that were measured compared with our 6 was about $26,000 higher. So all of that is something that we've noticed and had concerns about, especially in light of the fact that we've had some attorneys leave, but we're also concerned about the future vulnerabilities, as I pointed out. And I would note this information on here is in no way a knock on any of these offices and saying that they don't deserve it. They have attorneys who perform very complex work. They have attorneys who are very skilled, but I also think our office has those attorneys as well. Next, I'm going to look a little bit more at the internal salary analysis. Traditionally, and I started here 11 years ago, but traditionally attorneys in the district attorney's office for comparable positions have made slightly less money than the attorneys in the county counselor's office. I'm going to show a graph here in a second that demonstrates some of that. This has changed substantially in the last couple of years. I know the board approved in 2023 compensation package that I think amounted to about $1.7 million in additional compensation for the district attorney's office. And the analysis that I've undertaken is looking at, again, those deputy and assistant county counselor positions in our office, compared them to staff attorney 3, senior attorneys, and chief attorney positions in the district attorney's office. So the 31 highest paid attorneys in the district attorney's office who are not the district attorney. When you look at those numbers, just speaking in terms of year-to-year budget increase, the 2023 budget reflected a 23% increase in each of those attorneys' average salary in that time frame. I'll move on to the chart I was mentioning earlier. The yellow line you see on there is looking at 2014 through 2024 county counselor salaries for attorneys, and the blue line is the attorneys, again, at those 31 positions in the district attorney's office. And you'll see that historically the county counselor's office had been paying slightly more than the DA's office. About 2 years ago, there was a gigantic increase in the DA's office. Again, I'm not saying that wasn't deserved. Those attorneys work hard. They have very good attorneys. So there's no way, I assume that's helped in Mark's retention efforts and his recruitment efforts. And so really, I'm here asking for something similar, not saying I'm asking for the same amount of money, but something similar to help in our retention efforts and our recruitment efforts when we do have vacancies, so we're more competitive in the marketplace. And what I'd also point out in our salaries is you'll see it's been very flat. And this is in part a consequence of the turnover that we've had, whether it's been retirements, whether it's been attorneys leaving, hiring in attorneys, the low end on the pay scale. But the concern is that right now, there's not really a clear avenue for attorneys for the Sedgwick County Counselor's Office to kind of close that gap between us and our peers. We're so far behind right now, and with just cost of living increases, it's going to be a real challenge for us to retain those attorneys, because it's going to almost be a no-brainer for them to look for other jobs just because of the pay differential. And this slide kind of demonstrates, again, I looked at Johnson County and Kansas City County, Wyandotte County. It's comparing how district attorney's office and county counselor's offices are usually paid in comparison to each other. And what you'll see is that it's pretty typical that counties pay their civil attorneys a little bit more than they pay their comparable prosecutor positions. And again, I looked at staff attorney 3 and up for all 3 of these offices. And in Johnson County and Sedgwick County, that accounted to a little bit more than 50 to 60% of their attorneys. And KCK Wyandotte County, I think it was a little over a third, so like 35 or 40%. So they're rough comparables. What you'll see is that the county counselor's office is once again a bit of an outlier. And I say a bit of an outlier, it's a 16% difference, whereas on the other side, the civil attorneys are paid more. We're paid 16% less on average than the county counselor, than the DA's attorneys are. So there's a pretty big difference. This is that document in graph form, and you can see, again, roughly equal in Johnson County, roughly equal in Wyandotte County with a slight lean towards the county counselor's office in both cases. And then it's kind of flipped in Sedgwick County. Lastly, on my old Ross Perot graph slideshow presentation is the CPI analysis. I got numbers from Lindsay that showed CPI, and if you took the salaries of the office in 2014 for those 6, well, back then it was 7 positions, in the county counselor's office, which was around $92,000 a year then, and you took it with CPI factored against it, you can see CPI is the blue line, and then the yellow line is, again, the county counselor's office pay. And it goes all the way up, the blue line does, to 2024 to $124,000. And again, we're paid a little over $100,000 on the average for those positions. So we've really trailed the cost of living over this last decade in terms of how our salary movement has occurred. And there was something I wanted to mention a bit is I think what the request I'm making in this part of this decision package, it is consistent with something the county's done the last couple of years in its budget process. The cost of attorneys has gone up. I see it in our outside counsel bills. Unfortunately, they're not billing what they used to, 5 years ago. They're billing higher rates. The cost of living for so many things has gone up. But the county's also been paying more money for attorneys. And I'm not just talking about the district attorney's salary. I know that the district court, I mentioned the $1.7 million in 2023 for the DA's office, but in 2023, the district court, and I realize this is statutorily required, but there was a $437,000 increase in the fees for contractuals for court-appointed attorneys for indigent defendants. Last year, there was a $200,000 increase from the district court for that. I don't know what they're asking for in 2025 or what the district attorney's office may be asking for, but the point is this has been a consistent theme in the last couple of years, is that these attorneys cost more money. And so I think what I'm requesting here is not inconsistent with action the board's taken the last couple of years. And then lastly, on that, I wanted to note that we haven't fleshed out what the dollars of this decision package would be. And we're in the process of working with human resources staff. I'm really looking forward to having those discussions. But the total impact of this in terms of the actual cost to the county is likely to be smaller than all those numbers I just read you. So in terms of full fiscal impact to the county, I don't think this is going to have near the impact that some of that would. And I also think it's worth pointing out, I've focused a lot on public sector, how public sector employees, or attorneys, I should say, are paid. But it's also worth noting that the attorneys in our office are also really good candidates to go work in law firms, to go work as in-house counsel for companies or become judges. They're also good candidates for all of those things. And so we really do, in my opinion, we need to stay competitive in order to keep our talented workforce in the county counselor's office. So in terms of the decision package, what I'm asking for, and I know it's undefined in here, but is a meaningful salary increase above just cost of living to help narrow that gap that's been displayed. And we're working with human resources to come up with a tiered approach. I think what could be useful here is that you could have assistant county counselors who could grow within the office as they gain experience, as they become more efficient, as they learn how to work within the county, that they could acquire new skills and move up in terms of compensation. And so that's something we're in the process of working through. I've noted in here, and I'll just slightly mention it, is that I know that as part of the Evergreen study last year, some of our positions that were formerly 140, and most of the 140 level positions, 6 out of 7 were carried over to a 72. The assistant county counselor positions were covered over to a 71. And so part of the request in this decision package, what I hope maybe I can work through, is to try to get a grade level increase. And I realize that will require additional discussion, but to try to kind of, in my eyes, reinstate those positions to a similar standing that they had prior to that study, because those are very valuable positions within our organization. They require a lot of education, skill, and experience to perform those roles. And I'm going to present a brief turnover cost scenario. So regardless of how short we are on attorneys, the same amount of workload applies. It's not like if we're down 1 or 2 attorneys that there aren't questions coming in at the same rate from staff. And so one of the things we have to do in those situations, we certainly had to do it when Patricia Parker retired and we were needing to handle tax appeals, is we had to pay more money for outside counsel to help cover those shortages. And outside counsel is not cheap. So in this scenario, our typical turnaround from when an attorney leaves to when we fill the position is about 4 months. We're pretty thorough in our process of vetting, of leaving open applications, vetting candidates, and getting them to start. But if you take the hourly rate of outside counsel that costs over that time frame, it's about a $96,000 cost in terms of how that would be just to replace that attorney. Now, that's not always what we do, and a lot of the times we just take on the extra work ourselves, and that's part of what we do. But this is inefficient from that standpoint. But I think also what can become very inefficient is when we have new attorneys, they have to be trained up. There's a significant amount of training our attorneys have to go into. This isn't a job that all attorneys have skills in local government. They can just step in on day one and become efficient. It's a process. Again, 46 departments, varied functions throughout the county. And so when we hire new attorneys, they get really specialized training right away. That's key because we need them to be able to take on stuff, and they acquire specialized training and skills and efficiencies in operating within the county. And then when they leave, that's lost. And then we have to start at square one where we're back with another attorney. They may be here for a year or two and they start to develop that, but they become valuable to other attorneys' offices, again, who are usually paying more than we are. And so if they leave, we're once again back to square one. And I've worked here 11 years and I've seen that cycle happen enough times that it's concerning. So that's something that I really think it's more financially expedient for the county to pay our lawyers to lawyer instead of being continually engaged in training due to turnover. And the scope of what we do is very broad in terms of the work that we perform. I'd like to take a moment to just kind of acknowledge all that we have to do within the office. But for each department, those 46 departments, there are different statutes, regulations, codes, case law, and constitutional considerations that we have to take into account. And the practice of law has grown more and more complex over time. So and while a lot of attorneys will work in one area, they'll work in family law, criminal law, real estate law, our attorneys have to be able to cover these 46 areas. And that's a very big challenge for us to be able to do that. And so with our team of 7 attorneys, we have to provide a very broad range of services within the county, both for routine items and non-routine alike. And it's a privilege to be able to do all of that. But I just did want to point out that it's a very broad scope of work. So I think in terms of the financial impact of a decision package, if we had greater retention efforts, I think it would be helpful to the county in terms of one of the most helpful things would be we could perform our mission. We are part of a team that helps to limit and reduce and sometimes eliminate liability that the county is facing. We help preserve taxpayers' money, which is very valuable and important to the county. If the status quo would remain, then the concern is that we would have more outside counsel spending that we would have to do. And also, I mentioned the inefficiencies of the status quo. We're kind of in this continual training process. And so I think increased retention efforts would lead to greater efficiencies within our office. And I recognize, commissioners, you're facing a lot of budget challenges. I heard some of Tom and Lorraine's comments earlier. So I recognize that. But I also think that this decision package could really help us to perform the mission that we perform for you and everyone else within the county. And lastly, there's a decision package or slide that, again, we haven't fleshed out the details. So there's not really much included on that at this point because it's to be determined. With that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions you may have, commissioners.
Very good. Appreciate it, Justin. We did some 221s to walk through some of those data previously. Pretty in depth. We've talked about a grid conversation on compensation. Do you know, when do you think we'll have that conversation ready to present?
I think maybe June is probably the earliest. We got a series of meetings set up in May on this topic.
Very good.
HR. Yep.
Okay. So second question, you may not have this number off the top of your head, and I've seen this number a few times. How much do we spend on outside counsel?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it more specifically. It's as part of our budget, and I'm going to look at Alicia here, but I think it's about 250. Is it 250,000?
Okay.
Am I getting that right? 250,000 in our budget. Our numbers have been higher than that in the last few years. We've had record high amounts of legal claims the last handful of years. Plus, as I already mentioned, the hourly rates for those have gone up. But yes, those have been pretty high the last handful of years.
Justin, if I can, if you
Sure.
go to page 43 of your book, if you want to. External counsel and legal fees has its own program, and actuals in 2022, to Justin's point, they were $529,000. And then in 2023, it was $716,000.
Okay.
So the budget is
So it's under
250,
contractual
but
services.
to his point that it has been historically high, it has been historically.
Very good.
And we're trying to be very judicious in our utilization of outside counsel, and really their focus has been on litigation. I don't think we've been using outside counsel very frequently for non-litigation matters, but we're not staffed to handle the scope of litigation we get. We need additional attorneys and support staff.
That makes sense. Okay. Any other questions for Justin?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lindsay, what was that page number again?
43.
43.
43. So our FTE count, we're going way back when I first got here. I believe we have one more FTE in your office than we used to have.
No, that's not accurate, actually, Commissioner Howell. It is.
Adding the sheriff's counselor into.
Oh, okay.
Because they used to be handled over here, now it's handled over there. So if you add that in, there's technically 8 at play here.
Yeah, we used to have 8 attorneys when I started here 11 years ago. We have 7 now. So, and we lost part of a support staff position as well.
Okay, so we had 8
during this time.
before, and we were handling sheriff's legal needs over
Correct.
here. And so that one moved over there. So we're still at 8.
No, we're at 7 now.
We're at 7 here, plus there over there is 8.
Okay, yes, that's correct.
So counting them and us, there's 8 still.
Yes.
That hasn't changed. Okay.
Yeah.
When we do litigation against the county and there's a settlement that's paid out of the risk. What's it called? Risk management fund. Is there, it might be interesting to see a history of that, how much money we've paid out in the past. Because again, I see this as competing for the same dollars in a sense. They're different parts of the budget book, but. All right, thank you.
And does it have payout by department? When we run a jail, to be fair, the county runs a pretty big jail and there's a lot of.
There are
issues.
occasions where settlements are not paid from risk management, but it's not often. But we have a specific line in our accounting system called settlements, so we can run it for the entire organization and get that cost regardless of where it's paid from.
Tom, recommended budget July 10th. You plan on having everything dialed in on the decision package fiscal note prior?
We'll have a balanced budget for you by then.
Okay, Justin.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Commissioner.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Our next presentation will be the Division of Information Technology on page 174. And Mike Elpers will be here to present.
What page is that, Lauren?
174.
Bless you.
Good afternoon.
Hey,
Chairman,
Mike.
Commissioners,
All part of it.
Mike Elfers with the Division of IT. Today I'll be presenting the Division of Information Technologies 2025 budget request. A quick review of our current workforce strength, which thankfully is for the most part 100%. Out of 79.5 positions in IT, we have only 3 open, and 2 of those are new positions. A temporary position in ERP, which accounts for the red box, and 1 developer's position in BSG, which contributes to that yellow box. The other position in BSG is to fill a recently retired vacancy, which is a DBA or a database administrator. We're actually very close to filling that position. In fact, a contingent offer has already been made and accepted, just waiting for relocation and a successful background check to occur. A note on this slide, I do have a box for TRB or Technology Review Board. There are no positions associated with TRB, but it is part of the IT budget. Okay. Comparing our workforce strength to 2 years ago, we're very similar. We were down 2 positions of that time. Both of those have been successfully filled since then. And the slides don't really show that much of a comparison as far as full and vacant positions, but I can tell you that when we do experience a vacancy in IT, our applicant pools have grown considerably. It's not uncommon to have over 50 candidates for any given position. And with some of the changes that have occurred over the past 2 years, mainly in terms of compensation, but also for remote work, we're getting larger quantity and higher quality of candidates. We do still experience the occasional rejection of a contingency offer. I can think of 2 of those in the last 2 years, but we don't experience a lot of turnover. And things like compensation have definitely helped in the attraction and retention of our workforce. So we'll now start looking at these 3 departments. We have IT infrastructure on the left, business solutions group down the middle there, and enterprise resource planning. We'll look more in depth as far as the services they provide and the associated budget requests. We'll start with IT infrastructure. So as shown in the previous 2 slides, the IT infrastructure department is made up of 4 programs: the director's office, which is administrative services, our help desk and customer support team, our system administrators, networking and telecom team, and our IT security team. Now, some of the services these programs deliver are mandatory and some are discretionary. Examples of mandatory services are desktop encryption and multi-factor authentication required by federal agencies and even now some state agencies, as well as the network segmentation that has to occur for that to take place. There are compliancy rules around the data storage and transfer of data for criminal justice information system, for personal health information, and for payment card transactions. And identity management controls are a must to ensure that authorized people and only authorized people have access to the technologies that they need to perform their job functions. Some of the discretionary services IT infrastructure provides are more to obtain efficiencies. Departments might argue, and I might tend to agree, that these are mandatory services necessary to do their jobs, but there is no law or compliancy or even policy that requires these. Things like wireless connectivity, email and phone service, network storage and backup. We really don't believe there are services we provide that don't create efficiencies or contribute to streamlining departmental business processes, but they are not required by state law. That being said, any technology on our network that must be supported by IT infrastructure so as not to conflict with those that are mandatory. Several opportunities. Did I get that? Yeah, several opportunities and challenges exist in this area of technology, but our primary efforts center around cybersecurity. We constantly monitor firewall event logs and network traffics and the ever-changing attack methods which exist all around us. We have several layers of defense in place to protect us, but we have to make sure nothing gets out of date. And to test those layers, both ourselves and using trusted third-party advisors like the CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency. We work with them every year on this. Additionally, with all of those security systems we have in place, we know it's our end users who are the primary target for attacks. Malicious emails and phishing attacks continue to increase, and as they say, it only takes one for an attack to be successful. We continually look for opportunities to improve our end users' security awareness, and will continue to do so. You've heard me talk before about software vendors' licensing models, that they're shifting from a perpetual model to a subscription or lease type of model. While we like the way this new model adds some consistency to our annual spend, it typically is a higher expense over the course of 5 years and can be challenging when vendors force a licensing shift by offering no other models from which to choose. We had a big one of those this year, actually in November of last year, when a company called Broadcom bought out a company called VMware. It's settled now, but we were running the majority on our servers for temporary licenses for several months. And then finally, we all love our technology. We like seeing the emergence of new types of technologies in the industry, and that can be a big opportunity for our organization to increase efficiencies and or reduce costs. The latest wave of AI tech coming out will continue to grow. It'll be built into our web browsers, our operating systems, our applications. This will hopefully provide big benefits to our operations and the operations of our departments, but we also know it will come with its own set of risks. Now to look at the numbers. First, all IT infrastructure budget comes out of the general fund. The state did recently put out a cybersecurity grant program for which we are applying, but today it's all GF. Their request went up in contractuals for 2025, partially due to that buyout of VMware I mentioned, but also I moved that equipment budget in 2024 up to contractuals. The interfund transfer numbers here and the equipment numbers here are for a 2024 CIP project that we're currently working on. If all goes as planned, we'll have, you'll see another part in 2025, but obviously nothing CIP is approved yet. IT infrastructure does have one decision package to submit, and it's for the leased network circuit that we put in place to support county operations at the Ruffin Building, basically connecting this location's network back to the core fiber county network on the downtown campus. Till now and through 2024, it's been paid by ARPA funding, but that ends in December. There are approximately $2,970 per month, or an annual cost of $35,696. There are no FTE positions associated with this, and we have no priority relative to existing services. IT infrastructure also is not submitting any alternative reduction requests or revenue package requests, just the one decision package to support the Ruffin offices. So with that, we'll move on to the second IT department, which is Business Solutions Group, or BSG. Like IT infrastructure, BSG is composed of 4 programs. We've got GIS, application management, project management, and IT application development. This slide is kind of misleading, and I was asked to change it at the last minute, but I already had copies printed and this kind of thing, so I'm just going to talk my way through it here. There are no laws related to technology around the solutions of which I am aware. So in that aspect, I could list all these mandatory services as discretionary, but there are many laws and statutes which dictate the functional requirements of these technology solutions. Laws related to taxation, property valuations, assessments of property, law enforcement, detention requirements, and the laws of our court system. Also records retention and laws related to forensic information and health. You can easily see how the implementation and ongoing management of these services is statute or law driven. There are also discretionary services that BSG provides, but similar to those in IT infrastructure, these are either in place to create efficiencies for departments or just an expected technology for an organization our size with our complexities, like a county website or our intranet E-line. There's also, this is also an extremely abbreviated list of applications BSG either builds or supports. We updated our strategic plan earlier this year, and the count of PC applications listed 153 Windows PC applications, 101 web applications, and 37 public-facing applications. As far as challenges and opportunities for BSG, several large programs are in the works or on the radar for BSG, including the phase 2 of the CAD RMS JMS implementation, which deals mainly with integrations with other systems, data reporting and sharing, and a planned CAD RMS JMS dashboard. The district attorney's office move off of the Justware system and on their new matrix solution will occur this year and the next. It will need to interface with the state's Odyssey system, just like their Justware system currently does. There's an upgrade to the treasurer and clerk's Aumentum or tax system, a new module for the appraiser's Orion system for personal property, oil and gas, a records management system for Register of Deeds, a permitting and licensing system for MABCD, and finally a major Kronos timekeeping systems upgrade for e-timesheet and telestaff in 2026. So all very large and complex projects to upgrade or replace. I mentioned BSG has several existing applications to maintain and keep current. And just like those of IT infrastructure, the costs and contract changes associated with these applications is ever changing. Staying on top of those changes and managing cost increases will be a big challenge for BSG. So now we'll look at the numbers. Again, all of BSG budgets come out of the general fund, an overall decrease of 4.5% in 2025 request. To break it out by budget category, BSG is looking at a small decrease in personnel, a modest decrease in contractuals, and flat budgets in commodities, an overall decrease of 4.5. No additional budget requests for BSG or reductions or revenue packages. So then we'll move on to the final department in IT, which is Enterprise Resource Planning or ERP. ERP is kind of a microcosm of the division, having basically the application management and project management of BSG, as well as the systems and hardware and software support of IT infrastructure. I usually group ERP into three programs: the Enterprise Financials, Enterprise HR Payroll, and Enterprise Analytics. Much like the mandatory services listed in BSG, there are no laws or statutes related to IT for delivering these mandatory financial-related services that you see here. However, the services do center around the statute-driven requirements of public sector finance. Policies, procedures, bylaws of GFOA, or reporting laws such as GASB 87, or the 1099s that we produce each year, as well as budget development, enforcement, workflow, procurement, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and so on. Sheena mentioned in her first today the labor laws and workforce and payment and taxation laws related to enterprise HR payroll work in ERP, timekeeping, payroll benefits, as well as confidentiality laws related to personal identifiable information, personal health information, and federal laws around the 1095 reporting. There's also infrastructure types of compliance-driven requirements here related to the encryption of sensitive data and the transfer of sensitive data, which guide ERP's basis administration and programming requirements. There are also discretionary services ERP provides, but again, these are in place either to create efficiencies in departmental processes or to provide information based on data to guide organizational and departmental decision-making. As far as challenges and opportunities, ERP is currently working on a large and complex project to migrate our SAP on-premise financial system to a set of cloud financial systems, as the on-premise systems currently in use are approaching an end of support date. The first step in this process is preparation. Several preparatory steps need to be completed, which require some specific accommodations to keep the current system functionality and operation in place while starting the upgrade process in the background. The biggest of these is converting the system to what is called Unicode. This means actually changing the underlying code of the system to a new format. This is required before an upgrade can occur. It means altering some of the existing programs and existing interfaces to continue to work in this new format, and again, making those changes while at the same time keeping the systems and functionality operational. The upgrade approach changed last year from a greenfield approach to a brownfield approach, which basically means upgrading the current system rather than migrating to a new solution. This greatly reduces the amount of change management associated with the project and greatly narrows the project scope. This approach does require acquiring a new procurement solution to keep that shopping cart, purchasing catalog, and purchasing contract functionality a requirement of this project. Enterprise HR payroll in ERP is really currently struggling to keep up support levels with HR-related requests. HR supported systems have grown considerably over the years with the addition of recruiting and onboarding, a new career site, performance and goals, learning management that Sheena talked about this morning, as well as an automated employee survey platform. This is still kind of growing with the addition of an automated background check module being implemented this year and a two-way text message module for the recruiting solution. HR and payroll are being very patient with us, and we appreciate that. But we know some things like biweekly payroll, they have to be delivered accurately and on time. The enterprise analytics program is being challenged by increasingly large and diverse data sets. Recent upgrades to large systems such as 911 CAD, Sheriff, RMS-JMS, and the fire district solutions require that ERP merge these new data sets with the old data sets. So analytics of historical data trends and statistics are seamless. This will continue to increase with the planned upgrades to systems operated by the DA, the Register of Deeds, and MABCD. And then finally, the current business warehouse solution, BW, and the current budget planning solution, BPC, have end of support dates in the future. ERP has to find a new suitable platform for these two systems and create and execute a plan to migrate or upgrade to them. These analytic solutions ingest data from so many other systems in the county, which makes the upgrade or transition to a new system extremely complex and challenging. But it also presents several new opportunities to expand that functionality and offer more updated technologies like mobility. As far as budget for ERP, again, all out of the general fund, and next year's request is 6.5% less than the 2024 revised. That decrease is due to some one-time funding we received in contractuals this year to pay for all of the maintenance of existing systems, which we had hoped we would not have to do. ERP does have one decision package request, which is for an additional FTE to add to our existing resources to support enterprise HR payroll services. I mentioned all the additions to the HR payroll services over the years, the recruiting and onboarding, the career site, learning management, performance and goals, and the employee survey. But a large recent struggle has been all of the changes and improvements to compensation. The compensation change requests have been multiple and have come to us with very hard deadlines. There were several of these requests last year, already 2 this year, and plans are underway that I know of for at least 2 more. Plus there is a change to shift pay, possible changes to benefit providers, and the annual open enrollment process for benefits, a long list of work log items that HR is requesting. So that's what's driving this request. ERP did ask for a temporary position in January to address this, and it was approved in February, and we're currently working to fill that position. It's our desire to replace that temporary position with a permanent full-time employee position beginning in the 2025 budget. ERP does have one priority relative to existing services to submit for this called Galageo. It's nowhere near the budget reduction needed to support the FTE request, but hopefully it'll soften the blow a little bit, I guess. Galageo is an add-on to one of our ERP analytics solutions called SAP Business Objects. It supplies geospatial functionality or a map type of visualization to analyze data sets geographically. These geographic types of requests are kind of few to ERP, and rather than leverage Galageo for these, ERP has been collaborating with our GIS department, supplying GIS the data they need in the format they need to supply that needed visualization. After all, that's what GIS does, and they do it really, really well. So anticipated recurring savings for that is $8,165 annually. So here's the summary of the decision package request and the alternative reduction for ERP. Now I'm supposed to go on to the division summary, but before I do, I wanted to show the total budget for the Technology Review Board and remind you that it is part of the overall IT budget request. That budget in 2024 is over 2.6 million, and the 2025 request has yet to be approved, right? So this is all general fund dollars as well. So this will really impact our numbers. So here's the total overall budget request for the division. Now, this includes the 2.6 million TRB request and the 1.8 million CIP project that's part of IT infrastructure. So an overall decrease of over 25% of my budget is gone for 2025. But this is my apples to apples type of slide. If you remove the large decrease out of the TRB budget and remove the large decrease for the CIP project out of IT infrastructure, this is what the totals look like. A small increase to IT infrastructure and a slight decrease overall. I believe this is much more of an accurate reflection of this year's IT budget compared to the
Thank you for that
2025
slide.
requested. Okay, and finally, the division summary slide showing the decision package requests for IT infrastructure and ERP, and the one alternative reduction for ERP. And with that, I'll say thank you for your time. All the department directors are in the room here, so we'll be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Mike, what you do is incredibly complex and important.
Thank you.
Did I say it was incredibly complex?
Those guys are the ones that do it all.
You
They
said
understand.
Odyssey and I blacked out.
I just am the face up here.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mike, thanks. I think you win the award for most acronyms per department. And except for that last one, Galileo, whatever his name was. Hey, but also thank you for, I do think it's of value. I know maybe you caught a little grief, but I think I'm really, as you know, I'm concerned about the cybersecurity stuff. And I think you randomly throwing out these tests for all the employees to see if they bite fish a little bit. I think it's really valuable, even though some may get offended if they failed or whatever, but I think it's responsible that we continue to do that. And thanks. You do touch all departments. You're a big deal for this operation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. We did start, as I mentioned, a new user security awareness training this year. And part of that is these phishing tests, if you will. It's the first one that I've experienced since I've been here. And it's hard to do. It's hard to send tricks out to colleagues. But it does make them kind of open their eyes to it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Howe?
I just wanted to comment. I think that Lindsay and Mike are vying for the trophy of the smartest person in Sedgwick County. You're obviously brilliant. She is too, but I mean, I'm blown away. I asked a question earlier during our meeting. I'm not sure I want to ask that anymore. No, he's out. I'm sorry. I know better than that. No, I just want to say on the business systems group or business solutions group, it seems like a lot of the work they're doing is stuff that's stable or should be stable by now. Is there that much work to do on all those platforms still? I mean, all the things that are listed there are things that have been around for a while for the most part. So why so much money in that part of the budget?
I'll try to answer that, but Greg Gann is in the room here and he's the director for BSG, so he might be able to get more specific. Greg, I would say that those larger systems that are used by larger departments, like our tax system, right? That treasurer, appraisers, register of deeds, county clerk, they all have a hand in that system. Those type of systems, even the SAP financial systems, have a shelf life to them. And it just kind of depends on how those shelf life dates line up. You'll see a lot, we've got a lot, BSG has a lot on their plate with regards to those larger systems in the next 2 to 3 years, but there are smaller systems too, right? Fleet management has one on the horizon. And I don't want to downplay any of the smaller ones either, because they're critical to a department operations. And Greg, I'll let you laugh.
Sure. Greg Gann, Business Solutions Group Director. To look at the number of things that we had in Mike's slide, starting with public safety, the CAT-RMS JMS project, we took a considerable amount of effort to plan and prepare and then stand up the core function of that system. But there are additional pieces that in order to fully complete the system takes time. We have to integrate with a number of different platforms at the state level and at the local level and with our partners across the street at the city of Wichita. That's not an easy task because they are not the same. We have to get the systems to talk to each other. So that takes considerable time and effort. So it's thoughtful, it's planned, and we stay after it until we're complete. The tax system, it's been around a long time. We have to update that. We have to move forward and keep up with the times and keep up with regulatory obligations. We're also obligated at the appraiser level to integrate and be approved in some of our solutions by the state and how we do things. So there are a number of organizations that drive this that we have no control over. So we have to be light on our feet and make things work. You look forward to some of the things we're doing with the district attorney's office with a new case management system, replacing one that's been in place and serving us well for almost 17 years. A brand new solution that has to talk to the state's court system. We're partnered with the state. We have an excellent relationship with them, and we're moving towards that with more efficiencies planned. Again, all of this takes time and effort. So we appreciate your support, and it has made a difference for us and allows us to do our jobs and do our jobs well.
Thanks for what you guys do. I know it provides a lot of tools in the toolbox that everybody uses different parts of the software that's created and implemented by the Business Solutions Group. And y'all doing a great job. And my only other comment, I'd just say to Mike and really the entire organization, how many government units out there have fallen to some type of bad behavior, some type of virus or some type of ransomware or whatever that happens at these other, we've been vigilant. Someone's been vigilant, and you guys get a lot of credit for keeping us safe.
Thank you. Yeah, one is too many.
Right. Who's next?
We do have a break scheduled if you still want to take a break, or we could go on to our next presenters.
Chairman. Short break, 5.
That's good. You want for sure. Who's next?
Register of Deeds.
Let's take a break.
We'll take a break. Okay, back to work we go. Lauren, take it away.
We'll be on page 56 of your binders, and our Register of Deeds, Tanya Buckingham, is here to present.
And here she is, Tanya Buckingham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Chairman, Tanya Buckingham, Register of Deeds, and thank you for this time to present our budget. So on this slide here, we have the administration area that consists of myself, my chief deputy, and office manager. The data area of the office includes all staff in the customer service area and the e-recording areas. We rarely have openings within our office, but we work diligently with HR when any openings come. This is our 2023 workforce strength overview. As you can see, the only difference from last year and this year is that we have 4 FTEs under the administration and the rest of the department separate. The Register of Deeds services, mandatory and discretionary. The Register of Deeds plays a pivotal role in facilitating real estate transactions by collaborating with various stakeholders, including the public, county departments, legal professionals, and title companies. It is our statutory duty to process documents, ensure document history, and preserve all records through different medias. Additionally, the Property Activity Alert System notifies property owners of recorded documents concerning their properties, offering a valuable service to the citizens. The office also initiated the Veteran and Military Discount Program, incentivizing veterans to file their military discharge papers by providing a complimentary county-issued photo identification card. Our new East Side location, offering full services, has experienced a notable influx of visitors, particularly the passport appointments. As a certified passport acceptance facility year to date, we have successfully processed 919 applications.
I was clapping for you, by the way.
You're what?
I was clapping.
Oh, thank you.
That's exceptional work, really.
Thank
That's a new program, correct?
The passports?
For your office?
Well, we have over there at the East Kellogg Tag office, it is new. And that's where we've had that influx of customers coming in. The Register of Deeds challenges and opportunities. We are consistently seeking efficiency improvements within our office. All staff members are cross-trained in all areas of the office. When we established the East Kellogg Tag office location, we did not hire additional staff for this location. Last year, we collected about $50,000 in revenue, and in the first 3 months of this year, we have already collected about $30,000 from passport fees. Right now, we're communicating with the area high schools, and we are gearing up for senior trips and going to go to their locations to process passports.
Wonderful.
We're moving to a vendor-based system, and we'll be able to provide additional services to our customers in the comfort of their own homes. They will have the ability to print, search, obtain a certified copy of their documents all online. The Register of Deeds budget request is $1,392,110. This slide shows the breakdown of contractuals and commodities. The Register of Deeds 2025 budget request has no decision packet, no alternate reduction, and no revenue packets that are submitted. This slide shows the summary of our budget, and I will stand for any questions.
Wow. It's impressive, Tanya.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Tanya. Thank you for the presentation, but also I know that in your future is a desire to digitize records.
Yes.
So that's not in here, but that'll come sometime whenever.
Our records are online going back to 1947. Is that right, Kinley? 1947. And we're actually using our current staff that we have in the office with being a little slow this year. But then we have looked at the possibility of going through the process of getting a vendor to actually finish that. It's taken us a long time just to do a few years at a time. But I think with a vendor put in place, and yes, we are looking at that.
But right now you go back to 47?
47, yes. We want to go back to the very beginning of the 1800s. That's our goal.
That's when David Dennis bought his first house.
No comment.
It's not fair when he's not here.
I know.
So-
I'll Commissioner House.
Back to the slideshow.
Yes.
Okay, so on slide number 7, you have 2 changes. I'd just like to see if you can explain. One's a minus 99.3%, the other one's a plus 42.6%. What's going on there?
Is that the contractuals and
Contractuals is
commodities?
down and commodities is up.
That was an error in entering in the numbers.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Is one of
So
these
we
co-
can't change that. We couldn't change it before we gave you the papers today,
Okay,
but they should be the same as last year. But it was one of those things where, oops, we entered it in and the number was entered in correctly. So,
so you're human, I'm sure.
yes. That's it.
Mike, I'm still wondering about Mike Elpers. He's amazing.
Thank you, Tanya, for taking part in our Keep the Commissioners Aware campaign. Just make sure if they caught mistakes like that, good job, Commissioner.
Yeah, I was testing you. I didn't tell you ahead of time, just making sure you were.
Orchestrated.
Two more little questions. One is we're transitioning to a vendor-based software system.
Yes.
Please explain that a little bit more. What are we talking about there? What's the cost and
Well,
what's the status?
currently we have an in-house system that the IT department had built back in 2014. And so we have outgrown that system. There's a lot of new technology out there. So we put in a bid and we went through purchasing and went through the whole process. And one of the companies was awarded the system. So it is a possibility. And I've talked to Lindsay. It looks like she's going to.
I
She's
just want
got
to make
something
clear
to
that
say.
it's your tech fund that you're using to do
Yes.
this. So it's not general funding.
Right.
So I think
Well,
that's an
However,
important
if she doesn't use
distinction.
all that tech fund, eventually it goes where?
She has complete control over it. It can stay or she can opt to give some to the county.
And that
as
has
her
happened in
office
the
has in
past.
the past.
So if you don't spend it, eventually, potentially, there's a benefit to the county by not spending the money.
Yes, and I think year to date, we have transferred over $6 million to the county from the technology fund that we have not used
And I'm sure there must be a start date for that number to be.
since the
understood.
very beginning of having the technology fund.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the last question is, I didn't realize it was mandatory service that I have my DD Form 214 registered with the county. Thank you very much. That's a mandatory service?
You don't have to file it there, but it is available.
I'm saying, but your service, you have to provide a service. You, or per the law, you must provide a service to register those with the deeds.
Yes, we do. We provide that
I
service.
know you do. I'm just saying it's mandatory that you have to do this.
It's statutory required, but it's not required for you as a veteran to come in and
I
file.
understand. I don't have to do it. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering that the law says you have to be willing to offer the service to veterans.
Yes. Yes.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's all my questions. Thank you.
The passport services, that's going to be likely close to $100,000 additional revenue. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's really good work. I'm a customer, a recent
You were.
customer. They did a great job. I like my
Good.
picture, but they did a great job. So
Good.
any other questions for Tanya? Well done, your guys' office. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll hear from our county treasurer, Brandy Bailey, and we'll be on page 147 of your binder.
Hello, Miss Brandy Bailey.
Hello. While they're finishing up handing out, thank you, commissioners, chairman, staff. Okay, so the treasurer's office. So our office staffing table provides for 17 and a half full-time staff. Broke out into 3 divisions, the accounting division, which has 5 staff, tax collection, 6 FTEs, and a delinquent tax unit, which has 3 FTEs. Currently, our tax administration overall has 17.5 FTEs, and we're down 1 position due to opening in our deputy treasurer position. Currently, we're reviewing that job description, and that will be posted here in the next few months, and we'll hire for that position. change in workforce strength from 2022 to now. We have the same amount of positions still available in our office. It's just in 2023, we created a new unit, a delinquent tax unit. So we just restructured how the office sets. And in 2022, we didn't have that unit. So you'll see there's just the two. But like I said, the staffing numbers are still the same for the department. The services we provide, so mandatorily, we collect real estate, personal property, and motor vehicle taxes and distribute those to the taxing authorities. And then we also act as the bank for the county. So any department that takes in revenue, we'll bring it to our office to deposit, and then we get it over to our bank. The treasurer's office challenges and opportunities. So my duties, since they're statutorily and mandated and regulated, this makes it somewhat difficult to know from year to year what our challenges and opportunities might be. So a lot of it's based on the legislative session and what happens there. It is important to bring up, I know this isn't really talking about our tag office funds, but in 2022, Sedgwick County, we were the last state in the county, or the last county in the state to generate enough revenue to cover the motor vehicle operations. So therefore, since 2022, we've had to come to the county at the end of the year and request general fund dollars to help subsidize the tag office. For 3 decades, they have not increased any fees for us and haven't allowed us to increase fees. So we're working off fees from 30 years ago. And but with all the inflation, we just can't keep up. So I just want to bring that up because it does tap into the county's general fund. With that being said, however, we do have some opportunities. Currently, we have tag clerks that we station in our tax clerks that we station in the tag offices to help us collect property taxes. We find that we have lots of citizens that really compliment that and appreciate them being able to go to multiple locations. I do have 2 new satellite offices, one in Park City, one in the Derby driver's license office, and that's a full service operation. So it does take tax payments and any tax functions can be done there as well. Where in 2023, legislators allowed a change in the wording for a statute that now allows us to email our tax bills. So we're currently working with our mail service vendor to set up an opportunity for us to collect email addresses from citizens, so that way you can get your tax bills emailed to you, which will help us then eventually reduce postage. Right now, we're not expecting that to happen and go into full effect until the 2026 tax season, just because the timing of collecting the email addresses and getting everything set up. But we are actively working on that right now. And then another opportunity is collaborating with my fellow elected officials. So the register of deeds and the county clerk, we are working together to try to get our services so we have a one-stop shop so citizens can go one place, whether it be online or we have a individual tag office. Right now, Tanya's in my tag office. So if we can find a service that Kelly can do and we can have one person at one location, which will help benefit. Our budget request for this year for 2025 is $1,577,942. It's a 0.84% decrease from 2024's revised budget. The decrease is in personnel. That's the only area. I have no decision packets for the 2025 budget. So therefore, like I said, a 0.84% decrease in overall budget from 2024. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Simple. Questions, comments? Commissioner.
So this precedes you, but I am curious. We still have a lease. We have a lease on that Kellogg building.
Correct.
What's the end date for that?
The end date, we just got it the other day, was 2028. November of 2028.
I don't know when the right appropriate time is to talk about that, but at the time, I know there was a lot of disagreement perhaps on that decision. And I believe that the analysis on that came out later showed it cost about $1 million more a year to operate that site than the previous 3 remote sites collectively.
It is quite expensive to generate or operate that office. I'm not happy about the lease that I pay on that building. Like I said, it's very expensive. We're at $250,000 a year approximately. by working and going into satellite offices, I've worked with the city and the state to get in those offices, and they don't charge me a fee to operate in those offices. So my hope is to go out into other communities and get into an office there or a setting where I can work out of there, and then evaluate what we do with the Kellogg office when that lease comes up.
The only thing I'd say about that is those offices are operating by appointment only.
Correct.
And what we used to have before was three satellite offices. That was similar to the downtown office. You just walk in and get service, provide, get your service that you need that without having to call ahead and have an appointment. And we have the queue-less system set up. So if you even walked in last minute, you can still get in a virtual line before you got there so that you could, hopefully get your service on that day. One of the offices that closed was in Derby, and I'm still hearing complaints about that today. There's 25,000 people in that city alone. And the MSA, it's not the right way to say that, but if there was such a thing as an MSA for the city of Derby, how many people do business in Derby? It's probably 35 to 40,000 people go to Derby to do business. So it's a big chunk of the county. And it's big enough that I still don't know that I agree with the decision. I think we were better off having, again, there were fairly low cost leases to have distributed offices. And so I just want to throw that out there. I hope if that decision is coming up for reconsideration, that you'll talk to commissioners before a decision is made in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're already kind of having internal discussions about what our future looks like once that lease is up. So
Where are the satellite locations at now?
right now we're in Park City, in the Park City City Hall, and in the Derby driver's license office. Park City, we're there every Wednesday. And then in Derby, we're there every day of the week. And we are completely booked in those offices.
Yeah, you are.
And we're actually having conversations with the state to see if we can add a second staff person in the Derby office.
My recollection of the Kellogg tag office lease was it was a 20-year, but you could escape after 10.
It is a 10-year lease. And in the first year, we had the option to buy the building, and that option wasn't acted upon. So now we're in it till 2028. After the 10-year lease is up, then we have the option to extend and the price.
Stop.
Correct.
Or buy.
That's not in the contract. The only option to buy was in that first year.
And I know Justin's not in here, but there was escapability, but it came at penalty if you
Buy out portions.
before 2028.
And I'll just say the commissioners were not part of the discussion or part of the decision to make.
Correct. Nor was I.
You weren't the treasurer at that point, right? Yeah.
Just make that clear.
We've talked about that. Yeah. Brandy, I sent a message over from a constituent yesterday about their experience at the tag office, and they raved about the experience and the customer service and just a frequent flyer at the tag office. And he had said that it's improved dramatically, the experience. So I sent you that message. I wanted publicly to make sure that people knew and that your staff knew that I hear it frequently that people are very pleased with the service they're getting at the tag office.
Thank you.
So, okay. Other questions or comments? Were you good?
Nope.
Thank you.
Our last presentation today is Culture and Recreation. We'll be on page 588 of your binders. I believe Tim Kaufman will be starting us off.
Page was that?
588.
I will start us off and I will then turn it over to these two fine gentlemen. And I do appreciate the opportunity. If you look at the schedule, it's all general government, except I get to slide a little culture into your day.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's great.
This is a division workforce slide. We've got two departments making up the division. One department has one person in it from a county perspective. And then we've got a program that doesn't have any staff persons, and that's slightly improved. Those positions are mostly in Scott's department. In terms of community programs, that is not a mandatory program. We fund 5 different organizations that do provide some quality of life experiences for people in our community. And some of those I think tied directly to economic development as well. You want community benefits by having organizations like the 5 that are listed up there. The challenges that they face are competition for fundraising dollars. The dollars that we have spent with them are flat and have been flat for a number of years. The dollar amount includes a capital campaign contribution. So when I get to that slide, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But their operating costs continue to increase, and so that dilutes the funding that county provides them. But again, quality of life amenities are important to attract and retain people and employers to the community. In terms of opportunities, the early work that we did, we had an en banc 6 weeks ago, but we had also talked a couple of years ago, and some of the work that we did at that time when we were looking at the possibility of doing some merger work, we talked about a leadership council. And although our work stalled, Adam in particular pushed that forward. And so now we've got in the community an attractions council. And so all the different directors of the attractions in the community get together and meet and look for opportunities to collaborate, coordinate, and improve services. And so that I think is a real benefit. And I think we'll just continue to see more good things come out of that attractions council. The Sunflower Summer Program is really effective. I think the top 2 participants in the Sunflower Summer Program are these 2 gentlemen here, but the other programs that are funded through community programs participate as well, and they all identify it as a benefit to them. And then TCAM is making significant progress in terms of their capital campaign. So when we get to the funding slide, $90,000 of that is for the TCAM capital campaign for their new facility. They are at about 85% of they had to revise their target up, of course, as construction costs have gone up over the last couple of years. They're at about 85%, and they are in a position where they think that they will begin work in spring of 2025 on that facility. They had purchased the facility. They are continuing to fundraise so that they can get the funds together to do the work to convert that into their new home. The dollar amount remains the same as $407,000. $90,000 of that is that capital campaign contribution. 2025 will be the 4th year. So there's 2 years left on that particular agreement. And it is all in contractuals, no personnel in this particular budget, no decision packages, no nothing. Any questions in that regard? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and he's going to talk about the zoo.
Hey, Scott, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. So our workforce strength, we're in a really good position right now. We have 112.5 FTEs. We are short 1 maintenance person right now, and then we have a part-time mammal keeper position that's open. So we've done really well since 22. You'll see here we're up a 3% increase from 22. I will point out some of that is just due to in 22 working with several departments here at the county. We did make some kind of position swaps with the Zoological Society. So you'll notice we had county janitors in 22. And if I go back now, all of our custodial are now under the society. And essentially what we did was we brought that society veterinarian over to the county side. And so that way, all of our vets are county employees now. They're kind of all under county, jurisdiction, so to speak. And that has actually helped us get those custodial positions filled. We've been able to retain. We've had to pay a little bit more of a premium on the society side for those positions, but the swap has benefited both sides of the partnership. So, but yeah, we're in a really good place with our staffing right now. So, as far as our services, really, as most of you all know, we're completely discretionary. Although my staff saw me prepping for this meeting, and someone said, none of those things are discretionary to them. So especially when you talk about providing a safe place for our guests and care for the animals, obviously our staff is very passionate, and all of that is mandatory work for them. So as far as opportunities and challenges we have coming ahead, obviously with our announcement, the last BOCC meeting that I came to, we're going to have a big year in 25. So we're really going to lean into telling the story of our elephant herd and hoping to share that story with all of Sedgwick County, all the state, as we've even gotten some nationwide attention already. So that's going to be a big opportunity for us to get new guests to the zoo, to maybe influence some folks, locally that don't always come to the zoo to want to come out and see us. So we're going to really lean into that opportunity in 25. As far as challenges, these are kind of the same thing I talked about last year, and they're going to continue to be challenges just because we have an aging facility. First and foremost, standards of animal care, how we take care of our animal residents changes almost every year. And that is a good thing as we learn how to care for animals better. As our standards change, we have to kind of evolve to meet those standards. In 2018, when we got together with our strategic master plan process, we did identify that we were short some animal care staff positions. But to this point, of the 5 positions that we kind of identified, we've already filled 2 of those. So, we're obviously moving in the right direction. That did come up in our 2019 accreditation, not as a major concern, but just as a minor concern. And then we have our next accreditation next year. So that'll just be something that we're kind of look at and work on. Second, our capital improvement will continue to be a challenge for not only us as the zoo, but just us as a county. We have 2 very large, very aging buildings at the zoo right now. So the Velt building is it's over 50 years old, and the Coke building is over 40 years old. Buildings that you and I use that age, they need some TLC, but we can usually make them work. Buildings that animals have lived in for 50 years, animals are really hard on infrastructure. So we're going to have to really dive in to both the Velt and the chimps and orangutan building. We've already started that work, looking at what our potential options might be, trying to get some cost estimates, and then we're going to need to utilize those to decide what our next path is. So that will continue to be an issue. Additionally, in 2018, we did recognize that we could use some additional maintenance positions to help with the capital improvement. Of those 3 that we identified, we have added 2 maintenance positions. So we've made headway there as well. And then lastly, kind of coinciding with the opportunity, having pregnant elephants is going to be another challenge for us in the future. We know that the barn is going to be adequate for the first couple winters, but as those young, if we're successful, start to grow, we are going to need to probably look at expanding that barn. And we have already begun some initial work looking at what does that look like? How do we make sure that we keep that area open for all of our guests year round? There's a lot that's going into that, and we've already started working on that. So I do not have any decision packages. I don't have any reduction opportunities. So our funds all come out of the general fund. And as you can see, overall, we have a slight increase. I believe that is all a result of just the compensation changes that occurred for next year. So any questions for me?
All right. Thank you, Scott. Any questions? Comments? So the mom elephants are doing good.
They are all doing great.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Great job, Scott. Thank you. Good afternoon, Adam. Welcome.
Afternoon. Thanks for having me. There are no pregnant elephants at Exploration Place that I am aware of.
What a shame.
2 years from now, there will be a giant 25-foot bison and many other wonderful things sitting in our grounds.
I love it.
Okay, as I think you know, I am the single county employee at Exploration Place. Everyone else on the staff works for Exploration Place Inc., which is the 501c3 nonprofit. Compared to where we were last year, I think the hiring situation's eased off a little bit. I think this time last year we were having real difficulty filling some of our positions. Still not the easiest in some of our front of house areas and maintenance positions, but some areas of the business, we're actually getting tons of really great applicants for some of the positions we're hiring now, which we definitely were not seeing a year ago. So we have 67 full-time employees right now. And so that side of things, I think, is going pretty well. As Scott said, that is literally our mission statement there. And for us, that is mandatory every day. We bring our best effort to fulfill that mission. Uncharacteristically, I got all of everything I wanted to say on a single slide. That I think we're in an interesting time with Exploration Place right now when we think about opportunities and challenges, because we're going after a big opportunity and we're doing really well on that. The expansion that we're working on. Well, you all came and shoveled some dirt to start the amphitheater construction. That's going really well. We're going to be inviting you back in a couple of months' time to do the groundbreaking for the playscape, which is 10 times the budget of the amphitheater, and that's the big expansion for us that we think will take Exploration Place to a completely new level of participation, and it will probably, in the end, will double the size of Exploration Place in terms of what we are as an organization. So that's the big opportunity we're going after, and it's going pretty well. Still got some fundraising to do, but if we continue the momentum that we've generated over the last 18 months, we will get there and be able to do a really, really good job of this. The challenge for us as an organization is that we're kind of changing the oil while the engine's running, because Exploration Place is at historically high levels of participation. We had record attendance last year. We've got record membership levels right now. There's something going on every week, and we're really proud of that. But the main challenge we're working on is keeping that level of activity, keeping the success that we've gained over the last few years going, while at the same time fundraising, planning, building, and ultimately operating a major expansion. And in that period of time, and Lindsay was part of a finance committee meeting we had last week where we're starting to look at our budget for next year. There are some front-loaded expenses, particularly on the personnel side. We need to hire some positions before we can get any revenue from the new operation, just because we need that base of experience in certain areas, particularly some of the maintenance roles, food and beverage, and visitor services. So that is challenging, and it definitely causes me to rely. I have a wonderful team. A lot of my perspective on Exploration Place right now is just trying to keep I've got a high performing team. I want to keep that group together. I've got a great board and a lot of support from the community. So hopefully that will get us through the challenges to the opportunity. So no change on the budget. I think we are in year 2 of a 5-year agreement that we came to last year with the county. So there should be no surprises here on the financial side. I'm very happy to take any questions you have.
Mr. Howe.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple of questions. So when you have EP2 is up and running, I assume you'll have to have some staff at that point to run that part of the venue. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And right now is Exploration Place planning to charge for those have admission to those areas of the?
Yes, that's a good question. We're not proposing to raise the rates or have a separate admission charge for the expansion, but it'll be basically part of the ticket to Exploration Place, but Exploration Place will just be larger.
Like the gathering place, we keep talking about the gathering place in Oklahoma City. That's just free. You walk in.
Yeah.
But that's not the way it's going to be here.
Correct.
Okay.
Bearing in mind, they got $100 million endowment.
Yeah. Well, we should get one of those then.
Yeah. Yes.
I am curious. Did you listen to the en banc meeting the other day?
I did not.
Interesting. One of my questions is, and I'm not, and you know, Adam, I love you. I think you're fantastic for Exploration Place. We have a lot of similar thinking about airplanes and other things that really makes me really like you a lot. But having said that, I was just wondering why we don't just do a block. I mean, we have to have one FTE. There's a history here for some reason. I'm not quite sure why one FTE. Why not just do the block grant and let the Exploration Place figure out your salary and benefits, however they do? It's so different to us. I don't think. I'm not quite sure why it's different to them or to you, but I'm just curious, why one FTE? The dollars are the same.
I actually don't know the history, but maybe Tim does.
I'll let Tim get that one.
You know, for example, we hired Adam, for example, we had a lot of opinion, you know, who to hire. Actually, in my opinion, the only opinion that really mattered was theirs. And however Adam got here was a fantastic choice. But I'm just curious, why do we have our hands on this at all? Why not just block grant the funds and let them figure it out?
That certainly would be an option available to the commission if that's something that they wanted to do. I was part of the county, but I wasn't responsible for culture and rec at that point in time. But we got to this place with that position because of some financial struggles that museum had and that Cowtown had. And at that point in time, the city and the county both funded lots of different cultural opportunities in the community. And there was a decision made by the city council and the county commission to accept responsibility for, on the county side, we took EP, and on the city side, they took full responsibility for Cowtown and Botanica.
And the art museum.
I think, yeah, and our museum as well. And at that point in time, there was a change in leadership at EP as well. And so it was important to the commission that we have some oversight because of significant investment. It's a big ticket item as part of the county budget. It was important to the commission at that point in time that we have that direct connection to the employee that was responsible for spending those $2.2 million that comes from the county to EP. So we've certainly had two good, effective presidents since then. So it's certainly an option available to the commission.
I think Exploration Place makes a choice for leadership the way they have. I have no problem with us just basically letting them do it and us checking out. But dollars, I don't think the dollars would change in either case. But maybe make just a point when you said this. I've always understood that to be the case where we split up the cultural and rec things so that city did some things and we did certain other things. Now we have a fresh conversation about putting both of us in charge of everything, so to speak. My argument has been that's not consolidation. That's actually the opposite. We're making more complexity. By the way, Wichita, just to be clear, Wichita is not funding EP at all. Is that correct? They don't fund us. They don't fund EP at all.
That's not correct.
That's not correct. Please help us.
Wichita has a process where they distribute, I think it's about $400,000 a year to cultural arts organizations, and we do participate in that. And I was very proud to say that for the last 3 years, Exploration Place has been the top rated organization in their process, which is very rigorous. They have a whole committee that scrutinizes a detailed application that goes into our programming and finances and board structure and things like that. So it varies depending upon various factors, but I think the last 3 years we've received between $60,000 and $67,000 a year.
Is that a fairly new thing for them to provide that funding, or is this being?
No, I think that's quite long-standing.
Okay, so which I understand correctly, they have a policy. I think it was council created, but where one mill is dedicated towards arts and culture, and I think this may be part of that. So I'm not surprised that there's some funding from the one mill that's dedicated to that. And I'm sure they fund a lot of other things on that list to that very same fund. But having said that, so again, we're up at 2.2 and they're at 400,000. So I don't know that it's actually, so the question might be, maybe not today, but the question might be if Exploration Place was managed by Wichita and Sedgwick County. I don't know what that good thing that provides necessarily, but if that was to be done, and we were supposed to be, essentially in charge, if you a little bit, some degree, going backwards kind of on that decision was made before, get us back involved in the downtown or whatever else we're doing. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a move in the right direction or move in the wrong direction. I would love to have EP issue an opinion on that.
Well, I guess the board speaks for EP. From my perspective, I'm fairly neutral on what I think you're describing. I mean, the major issue is going to be what's the funding level.
Yeah,
that will definitely inform a lot of opinions. And then alongside that, it's okay, what's the city and the county requesting of Exploration Place attached to that funding? Now, I will say this, there's distinct difference between the city and the county at the present time, which is county makes the grant to Exploration Place and generally doesn't sort of say, here's what we want you to do with that money.
Mm-hmm.
You basically trust us to apply that to the benefit of the community as best our organization, our board sees fit. The city is, I think there's actually more specific, okay, here's what we're expecting you to do with the money. And so if you're going to merge, you'll need to sort of merge those two. It's not just merging money, it's sort of merging how you want to manage the situation, if that makes sense.
So my personal opinion is that we have a simpler form of government today with county doing this, the city doing that. To me, that's easier than having the city and the county both doing this and the city and county doing that. That to me is a little more complex. And so I don't know that I mind the way it is necessarily. I'm not suggesting we change anything. But the question is, if there's more efficiency or less cost or better services for the people we serve, if some of that can be realized with some type of reorganization of this thing, then I'd be open to that. I don't know. I can't perceive how those three goals will be met with some type of reorganization of who governs EP from the public sector. I don't know. I'm not sure what benefit that would be necessarily to change the way it's done. In fact, I think it may be detrimental. I think we're going backwards to maybe the way it was. We changed it for a reason. Actually, I have a question back for Scott as well. Thank you, Adam. I'm sorry to backtrack, but I did have a question on the zoo. So back to the org chart. There's a red dashed line down the middle.
Yes. So
And that 112 FTE, that's all on the right side of that chart.
Absolutely.
It looks like
none of the positions on the left side of that are in that overall number.
Right. So the zoological side, if you add up the FTEs under that column, it looks to me like we have, maybe I'm wrong by this, but I believe there's 75. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I want to say
I added up the numbers, but I'm not sure if there's maybe a box here where the breakout is down below that. I'm not sure if it's how that's organized graphically here, but looks like there may be 75 zoological employees.
And a lot of that is seasonal too. So ride operations, the society education positions, a lot of those are part-time positions that we hire as we're gearing up for the summer season. So depending on time of year, we might be as low as 40 FTEs on the society side.
So let me get back to why I'm bringing this up. And that, again, I don't want to cause an alarm in the news or anything else. But I guess my question would be, if we trust the Zoological Society, much like we trust EP, I'm not against our employees that are Sedgwick County employees. We love them. I'm sure they do a great job. But in terms of if we were going to create, if you will, an organization called Sedgwick County Zoo today, I don't know. I'm not sure we would do it the way it's currently broken out. I would rather see us block grant the funds, have these employees be zoological employees. You provide whatever health benefits and retirement benefits that you choose. Hire as many as you want, no limit. Right. Hire as many or as few. Again, you guys are going to be driving towards efficiency to get the work done. We don't have a good way to manage, if you will, what's happening at the zoo. We trust, and again, I'm not that we don't trust you, we do, but we have no way to drive towards efficiency because it's really outside of our management control. I would rather block grant the funds and tell the zoological society, if you find efficiencies, you get to enjoy, spend the money a different way, or increase salaries to those that are there, or whatever it is that you guys want to do with it. To me, the structure is not right. It's not, I'm not trying to be mean or negative to the zoo in any way. Right. What I'm saying is it's the same dollars to us. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather say, here's the money, and we trust you guys to make the best decisions for the zoo now. Let us not make those decisions. So I would suggest not changing the dollars, reconsider how this is done. I'll just, and again, I don't want to cause alarm, but I think if we're not going to talk about it at some level, then we'll never get anywhere. I think there's better ways of doing some of these things. I brought this up before, and there's no discussion about defunding the zoo. That's not what I said. I'm talking about trusting the zoo.
Right.
I think it's worthy of a discussion. And if we're not going to do it, I guess we don't actually have a 5-year agreement any longer. It's just done the way it's described on the budget page.
And we're currently in a 10-year agreement. So that agreement ends in 2028. So we do have some time, but I think from the zoo side of from our position, I think we're willing to come to the table and talk about, how do we want this to look in the future?
Even with that agreement, as long as the dollars don't change, I'm not sure we don't have the ability to restructure some things.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Other questions, comments? I would add that those conversations have, on my end, have taken place on a couple of occasions with you and some of your board, and I'm appreciative that everybody's open to having creative conversations about what it looks like. My role has always been in the conversation of how do we move things from property tax funds to sales tax funds, but a little bit more complex at the zoo because of the employees and things as such. But appreciate you're always open to the conversation. And Adam, is there an update on the campaign? I didn't hear an update.
Yeah. I think we just hit $19 million on our goal to raise 22 million. So that's, I think, about 85% of where we need to be. Got some good prospects in the pipeline. So still got some work to do. Also getting bids and managing the cost side of the project. And so, well, if we're doing groundbreaking, that tells you we're confident enough that we think we can get it done.
Well, that's great news. Appreciate all the work you guys do. Very good.
Thank you.
Couple more slides. I want to get shorted on my slides. There's the total for the division. And any other questions? Okay.
Other questions? Okay. Very good, Tim. Appreciate it. Guys, thanks for making the trip over. Okay, Lauren?
Okay, that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow at 1:45 for Public Safety Day.
Public Safety Day. Grassy Leads Day.